Welcome everybody to Bitcoin Live on the Sunday afternoon, at least in Holland's afternoon. Wherever you are, welcome. We got a good guest in the show, a Decred representative. Welcome to the show. I actually forgot to ask your real name, but I'll just call you Phoenix.
Phoenix
Is that your
fine,
real
yeah.
name?
No, I'm pseudo-anonymous. So I show my face, but I prefer to keep as much data offline as possible. Before we go into this, I should probably say I am a Decred contributor, but anything I say here are my own words. Some may represent the community, some may not. And also, this is not financial advice or investment advice. Just a couple of guys having a chat about things we're interested in. But yeah, on that note, it's lovely to be in. Thank you for inviting me on. It's great.
It's my pleasure, Phoenix. And I totally understand and respect that. It's it's the crypto world that we live in. That it's probably very wise to keep your real name off the table. You're also, I think, an editor or even the writer of a really cool website that you have. That is the CypherpunkTimes. Maybe we can start there. Can you tell us a little bit about the Times and what your role is?
Yeah, no problem. So CypherpunkTimes actually started as decredmagazine.com. And the idea behind it was we found it very difficult, and we'll go into this in a lot of different ways, but we found it very difficult to get Decred specific content onto mainstream publications. And the other thing is we had a lot at the time, we still do, we have a lot of really keen speakers in the Decred community, but what was happening is everything was kind of fragmented. So you had pieces over on Medium, pieces on YouTube, pieces on Twitter, and all these different places. So the idea with Decred Magazine was to bring that all into one place and have a place where people can subscribe and they can get all the latest data that's coming from the Decred chain. Now, last year, when the proposal came up for renewal, and that's proposals.decred.org, when it came up for renewal, a couple of the key figures in the community said, look, there's a lot of people that have the same problem as us. That, they've got their data everywhere, their videos, their articles everywhere. Let's make this something where a lot of communities like our own can actually come together and they can publish under their own brand, like DigiByte, for instance, and Litecoin and Zcash and Monero. They can all come together and they can publish on a singular site, so they can have a place where their stuff can get published without any censorship. So that's kind of how it started. And it's been running for 2 years now. The proposal is up for renewal at the end of this month, actually. But I'm the main proposal person at the minute, but I'm kind of taking a little step back from that. As one thing that I found very, very challenging is actually managing a creative team, a writing team. So that's something I want to take a step back from, but we'll still be publishing all the content from all the various communities, and anybody is welcome to join. If you are a creator and you want to publish your content on CypherpunkTimes.com, we can set you up with an account. You can put it on there, and all it takes is myself or one of the other editors just to quickly read through it and then press the publish button. But it's quite a nice way that we have these areas that you can bring all the content together. And so that was the main idea there, really.
And it looks really nice, and you got really great articles on your, like the Dandelion upgrade and many others. And I totally also can relate to what you're saying with the amount of work that these things take to sort of keep up and to manage it. We have the same problem with Bitcoin Live. You're doing so many things on so many different areas. You're also promoting yourself, right? So it's really a team effort, which is probably also a nice sort of bridge back to Decred, because one of the really nice things, I'm also a big fan of DigiByte, as you probably saw from our previous show, but I also really like Decred a lot. And one of the features that they both have in common is a very engaged and very active community. And I think one of the big edges that Decred has on DigiByte is that it's also very much structured. It has a very smart governance system through its hybrid proof of stake, proof of work system that you have, which makes it a lot easier to sort of steer it in certain directions and to adapt and to change, but also to allocate funds and to make things happen. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in crypto and why you chose Decred, and how long have you been at it?
Yeah. So I'm not an early bloomer by any means. I was running a business in the real world, an online business, and where I was selling educational resources. Um, and one thing I kept coming up against time and time again was the problem with having to pay lots and lots of middlemen. And that was kind of how I kind of said, there's got to be something better here. There's got to be something where we don't have to pay all these middlemen, where I can just transact with my customers without having a fee for the payment system, a fee for the website, a fee for this and a fee for that, which amounts to loads. So in about 2019, I did start a journey, and it didn't start with Decred by any means. Um, some of the projects I actually looked at were DigiByte, were Waves, were Nano, um, obviously Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin. These were all the ones I started with, and it wasn't until Coinbase published an article that said, "Hey, we might be listing these specific coins," and on that list was Waves and Decred, and those were the two that kind of captured me a little bit, because I thought, you know what, if I'm going to go down this route, it'd be nice as more coins get printed that I keep up with inflation. So both at the time, Waves and Decred offered staking, so you could actually you have your coins, and if you're just holding, you can still accumulate more coins just for holding, which is it always seemed a bit alien to me why I would hold a coin and not accumulate interest whilst my
Yeah.
money is being devalued at the same time. And it goes for all these, even Bitcoin. When the supply for Bitcoin when I joined in 2019 was, I don't know, 14 million, and they were going to print God knows how many, up to 21 million, of course. So it's like, well, you're at this halfway point, so you want to accumulate a little bit more than what you've got, probably 50% more than what you've got. And that's why the staking kind of looked really interesting to me. Now, I started with Waves because the profits on that were absolutely ridiculous, and I soon realized why they were so high, and got out of that within 6 months, and that's when I went full into Decred. Being that Decred is a 21 million cap, same as Bitcoin, the inflation wasn't going to get away with me just by holding one ticket, which is our way of staking. So that's really, and my mission from that point on was like, how can this be used for merchants? Can this be used for the sort of things that I would want in the real world? And obviously, in 2019, we were still a long way from that, and we probably still are now. Actually, we're probably still a good 5 years before merchant adoption really happens now. But you have to think longer into the future, and that was one of the things that I considered very early on: is will this project, will the ideals of this project actually survive? Will they work going forward? And the conclusion I keep coming to, and I'm always researching. I don't know everything about Decrypt by any means, but the conclusion I keep coming back to is this is actually one of the most innovative projects out there, and their whole goals are to focus on obviously decentralization, but the peer-to-peer aspect of it, non-custodial. So in 2016, when they printed their roadmap, it basically said, look, we're starting at this point, but everything that we include in the project will eventually be decentralized and will be peer-to-peer, and every single user will be able to run that. And at the time, obviously, a lot of other coins were saying the same thing, but because the only one that actually has iterated every single year, they've actually made something else go peer to peer, up until last week when the final piece of the puzzle actually came into play. Decred 2 got released last week, and now every element that was on that original roadmap has been decentralized and is now peer to peer. Every single person in the community can run it, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, because they have very small nodes, right? Before we went live, we had this conversation. I won't go into the details, but one of the problems was, of course, running a DigiByte node takes a lot of power, and running a node on Decred is kind of, yeah, it's a very small effort actually. And like you say, the versatility of Decred is really
Yeah.
amazing. I mean,
But one thing I should probably pitch in on there is we actually have two ways of running a node in Decred, which to my knowledge, to this extent, no other project has. So we can run a full node, which is just under 12 gigabytes, and which is still the node that most people should be running if they hold a lot of funds or they're doing a lot of transactions. So that's 12 gig, and that takes about the last time I did it, it actually took me 3 hours to download the full chain. But we also have an SPV mode, which is our light client, which is it doesn't have the same assurances as a full node, but it's very, very close. If anyone's familiar with Neutrino, which is Bitcoin's like client SPV wallet, it's kind of like that, but it has one added bonus where rather than having to run a side chain of headers on your Neutrino node, that is all built in via consensus now. So every block that enters into the chain actually has all the data needed for the light client. So when you run a light client on your mobile phone, you've got really, really high assurances, and you can collect that data from any of the full nodes. And because it's built into consensus, literally 100% of all full nodes actually carry the data you need, which is great. So when you go out into the public and you want to start spending at merchants or whatever, you have that added benefit that you don't have to take your full node with you, wait 5 minutes while you update from the previous week. It literally just synchronizes instantly with those high assurances.
Yeah, that is important information, and thank you for giving. We have a lot of techies also watching this, so that is very important information that you gave there. One of the other things that I also really like about Decred, before sort of moving on, is the founder of Decred. I actually followed him for a very long time, Jake Jacompiet. I hope I pronounced it right.
But yeah, Jake Jacompiet.
And I think he's also good friends with Jared Tate, right, of DigiByte, and they have sort of similar views, outlooks on things. I think, one of the other things that the two projects have in common, which I really like, is that they're very sort of focused on decentralization, on freedom, on the individual and individual finance and sovereignty and privacy and security. And they're very outspoken critics on, stuff that's going on in the world. And I can really relate to both of these founders. And I also advise people to follow both of them. This is, of course, Jake Jacompiet. He does amazing tweets. I often like and retweet them, and check him out if you sort of are a freedom lover. He's
sorry to interrupt. For anyone interested, in about an hour and a bit's time, hour and a half's time, we go live with Jake and Dave C to talk about Decred 2. So if you haven't got enough from here and you want more techie stuff, head on over to the Decred YouTube channel, and we're going to be diving really deep into that, which would be absolutely amazing. Those guys are powerhouses of thought, which is amazing.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I'll be preparing the next show, but otherwise I would probably take a peek. So shall we run a little video of how Decred actually works for the people who have no idea? We have been talking about it a little bit, but maybe a sort of visual might.
Go for it.
Yeah. So here we go.
Can continue this video. Like with all proof-of-work systems, transactions are packaged into blocks by miners, and once the blocks are solved, they're sent to the network. Now on many chains, that would be it. The blocks would get added, and the network moves on. But on Decred, the validation process begins here. 5 validators are chosen at random to verify the miner's work, and vote on if it should be added to the chain. Majority wins, so if at least 3 of the 5 validators vote yes, it goes to the chain. 60% of the reward for a valid block goes to the miners, 30% goes to the validators, and 10% goes to a fund that pays for further protocol improvement. But where do these randomized validators come from? Well, they can be anybody. Decred allows you to purchase tickets that act as your chance to validate. After a waiting period of about 1 day, your ticket will be added to the lottery pool. Tickets expire every 4 months, but you have a 99.5% chance of being chosen to validate a block within that time frame. So given that you validate a good block, you're almost certain to see a reward. The point of all this is to further disincentivize malicious forks and 51% attacks. Even if 51% of the proof-of-work mining power is owned by one person on Decred, the randomized validator pool can stop any malicious actions, assuming it hasn't been compromised by bad actors as well. It could theoretically be compromised too, so let's look at the cost of doing so. Decred's added validator system makes it about, which is considered one of the most secure blockchains in operation. Not bad. We mentioned forks earlier, so let's talk about those a little bit to transition into the governance part of this guide.
So that's, I think, enough. That's from The Geek.
We should just caveat on that, actually, because that's quite an old video. But the actual rewards are completely different now. So what happened over 2 years ago is there was a piece written by Taco Time, who basically discovered that there was malicious miners that were basically suppressing the price of Decred, and it actually happens, from what I can gather based on the on-chain data, it's happening on a lot of different coins as well. So in order to try and reduce the amount of supply that miners were getting, we've actually changed the algorithm from Blake 256 to Blake 3, so which basically destroyed all of the ASICs. We no longer have ASIC miners on Decred. It's now GPU. You can do CPU mining as well, but it's almost zero profitability. But also the mining reward has gone down to 1%. So what tends to happen now, so it used to be 60% of the coin supply. So what happens now is, if you're mining, you can gain extra profit by also staking, which gives you long-term holdings as well. So 89% of the block reward now goes to stakers, 1% to miners. So it really does make sense. Although if you're a miner, you are still getting quite a heavy chunk of coins. If you stake along with that, your profitability goes through the roof. But the difference is that the expectation is you're going to hold your coins for longer, which has already proven to kind of reduce the supply that the cartels are using against the project. So but I want to caveat that's old news, ancient news that happened like well over a year ago now.
That's true, and that is a long time in crypto. And the video was from the Block Geek, and I think it was about 5 years ago. And for me, it's sort of difficult to keep up with all the projects because we're sort of blockchain agnostic in general. And like you say, a year in crypto is like 10 years in real life, right? So my apologies for not being up to date on everything with Decred. So thank you for that clarification.
In fairness, so much has happened in Decred. So since that video, I mean, things that have already been done. So we've decentralized the treasury. So when that video was made, you had one set of keys that published the funds to contractors, whereas now you have a multi-sig, which effectively says that one key publishes the fund. So they say, hey, you're now willing to spend this. But then in order to spend all of those funds, or spend the contractor funds for that month, it then has to be approved by the stakeholders, of which there are 41,000 of them. So 41,000 tickets can be called at any point to vote on whether funds can be spent or not. Which is a massive thing. When you look at all the hacks that have been happening with treasuries and things like that, Decred was one of the first to actually move to a completely decentralized treasury. And the current funds in there are 880,000 DCR, which is like $10 million or whatever.
Yeah, and that's I think they were also the first to have this hybrid chain, right? The combination of proof of work and proof of stake.
The hybrid's an amazing system when you think about it, and there's been a lot of criticism since we took the mining reward down to 1%. There's been a lot of criticism. Why don't you go full proof of stake? But there are still a lot of assurances that mining give the project. So stakers actually, it doesn't go completely the other way, where stakeholders control the whole chain, then they can start doing some dodgy stuff. It still takes proof of work to validate everything that happens. And the second layer of assurance, which is the stakeholders and those 5 votes per block, basically say, look, that the miners have followed the rules and the transactions that are in that block are good to go, which is a great system. And even with the low reward on the miners' side, it's still beneficial. I don't think we'll ever go to a full proof of stake business. Just purely. The trade-offs would be too great either way, to be fair. But the hybrid system is, it's one of the reasons that has kept me around.
That also caught my attention, right? That's actually the main reason that I was such a big fan of Decred from the very start, because I thought it was very ingenious. They were the first, but I think it perhaps even also the best, right? I think I've never come across anything like it since, and it has been up and running successfully, like you said, for. I think they started in 2016, right?
Yeah, 8 years. The project is, as of February, just been 10/8. It's been, it's. I mean, there are other projects that are following that route, and I think it's generally a very good route. And we are seeing other stuff that's happening in obviously the mining and pure mining and pure staking. I mean, one of the one of the early assurances that it gave us is that the chain lock rules that are brought with the staking basically means after a few blocks, everything that goes into a block is finite, which you don't really see that a lot of. Even Bitcoin, after several blocks, it can still be reversed if it wanted to. I think other projects have also brought in chain lock. I think one of the last projects that got hacked from a reorg was probably, I'm sure there's many, but Pharaoh, one that comes to mind, where they were
Solana regularly. But
yeah, well, I know Solana shuts down regularly. I don't, but
what the heck? Okay, true.
yeah, having those chain lock rules, so that you can, as a user, there's nothing worse than thinking, right, I've got 5 blocks. Will it be finite? Is somebody going to come along and mine a secret chain and reverse all that? But I think we see a lot less of that now. But that was certainly one of the reasons that I liked it. And most of the hybrid chains don't need as much proof of work to actually be equally as secure as something like, probably not Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin at this point is infinitely more secure than most projects, just purely because of the amount of hash rate. But certainly even with the very minuscule amount of hash rate that we've got, it would still take several hundred million to actually attack the chain, which is absolutely fantastic. Being that each coin is worth like 10 quid, so
and I want to point out the Decred YouTube website, right? Because that's the best place to, of course, get content or information on Decred that's up to date instead of 5 years old. So
you've got a few playlists there as well, and we'll talk about the projects that Decred's are actually building in a moment. But playlists like the Bison Relay playlist and the DCRDEX, which is going to be Bison Wallet, hopefully in the next few weeks when it turns version 1. We can get into that if you want to, but there's lots of playlists to learn that.
Let's dive into that. So let's start with the Bison Relay. Can you give people sort of an idea what that is, what we're talking about? Because I think it's many things wrapped into one ID. I think it's a chat relay.
The best way of kind of describing Bison Relay is it's a reimagination of the internet. Although it, at the moment, has specific products, but it is this idea that the internet, or certainly the web browser, there's a few issues that to do with privacy and censorship and things like that really at this point are unavoidable. In that respect, it's very difficult. So the idea is that we'll build it one step at a time, and it really is like if you use Bison Relay, it really is like going back in time to the 1990s. It's quite basic at the moment, but one thing it does is it puts a financial layer at the base of it. So when you sign into Bison Relay, which is effectively going to be the new browser for the internet, you've got the payment layer. So the first thing you do is you create your wallet, or you synchronize your wallet. You add funds to that wallet, and you're good to go. So the first thing that it takes away the need for anybody to process your funds. So you've got your wallet, and everything that happens on that platform, you can use your wallet for. One example, one of the early things that's already happening is tipping. So you can tip any user that you're chatting with, and it costs you 1 atom, which is 7 zeros and a 1. So the single Satoshi, if you like. Yep. So it costs 1 atom to send a tip, and you can send whatever quantity you want there. So that's one of the first use cases. The next was like email. So emails is a complete mess right now. If you've ever received an email and you open an email and you click on links, all of that information is being tracked. It's being analyzed and all the rest of it. So the idea being is that you should have private communications, both individual DMs and group chats. So that's one of the first applications that's built solidly in, is you build up these contact lists that you can then tip. And then you've got news feeds and things like that. But it's the groundbreaking thing, obviously, I think it's groundbreaking, is the fact that all of the payment system is there. It's layer 1. When you open Bison Relay, you are running an SPV wallet, which is a lightweight client for Decred. Less than, I think it's about a gig. And you can literally run the internet, and all the time you're online, you can send and receive transactions. And if you wanted to be a merchant, and that's one of the next stages, is is they're building a merchant platform, so you can start your own store or start your own marketplace, but you don't need any additional software. It's not like, oh, I've just got a patch into PayPal, I've got a patch into this specific service. It's all built into the one core framework. Which sorry.
I got the playlist here. Which one shall we click? I think this is the 0.11 on macOS. Operating
there was one for, some of them are quite old now. So when that came out, it's now over a year old.
I think it's the 1.9, right?
Yeah, so many improvements have happened.
Yeah, this is, I think, this one is 7.
Bison Relay 0.1.9 was released this week with a massive focus on squashing bugs, user experience improvements, paving the way for 2 significant new features, and becoming mobile compatible. Let's install the new version by heading over to bisonrelay.org and navigating to the appropriate download for our operating system. To get the latest release, you'll need to click on.
Well, I think this is more, this is how to download, but I think this is also an already older version, so let's skip it. But
we're on version 2, but I mean, if you skip to the end of that, towards the end of that video, you'll see the interface, which shows you the chat columns, it shows you the tipping, it shows you the news feeds, and obviously there's 2 main things that are happening now, probably over the next year. We've already started to build storefronts, simple storefronts, which are allowed to buy digital products, and the other one is web pages, so you can actually have a web page for your whatever you want to create, basically.
Yes. I couldn't find the video quickly. I don't want to click the wrong one again.
No, it's not. A lot of those videos are tutorials for basically how to set up the product. So we do need to know. I might do this next week and just do me using the platform just to give an idea of what it does and stuff.
And I'll retweet it.
Yeah, at the moment, like I said, it really is like going back to the late 90s. It's quite basic, but it's already pretty cool, actually. I mean, being able to send DMs, being able to send group chats, and it's all private as well, which is absolutely amazing. You know, it's the privacy factors on Bison Relay.
And then talking on that, I mean, you already said it, but you know, it's nice to emphasize it, and I'm sure that people like Jared Tate and Jacom Piet fully agree, right? That we live in a time that it's very difficult to sort of speak your mind, have a different opinion, and not get cancelled or censored. Actually, I did have some bad news today because my brother, with whom I'm running this show, his account just got suspended on Twitter. So that just happened today. It was a small account. His main account was hacked. So he's basically off Twitter now. So for the people who are listening, this is brand new. And he is, of course, totally disappointed and sad and upset about, you know, losing your account just like that, right? With a snap of a finger. And that's really a big issue going forward. So something like a Bison Relay or other decentralized platforms where you can sort of not be afraid of, you know, being cut off like that is huge. And
well, there's 2 really. I mean, firstly, sad news for your brother, and we had the same problem with the Decred Magazine Twitter account, which completely got cancelled, and there was trying to reverse it was an absolute nightmare, which never happened. But there's 2 things that Bison Relay does, which is I think really, really interesting. So the first one is it's accountless. So you set up your payment infrastructure and you give yourself a nickname, and that's it. So every time you interact with the store or you interact with whatever, it's completely accountless. You're not, you're not having to set up an account for Twitter, set up an account for your email, set up an account for YouTube, set up, it's all in one. And really, whether we like it or not, the internet is getting one of those sort of places where the databases that are running these platforms are fragile at best. So I mean, whoever thought it was a great idea to have everyone's addresses online and stored in some database? I mean, it was completely off their head, I think. And that's one thing Bison Relay does. It says, look, if we're going to rebuild the internet, it has to be accountless. It has to be like, and the good thing, yeah, it just has to be accountless. Where you set up a username, you set up your details, and you can use any product you want. So that's the first thing. You're not having to go into Twitter and I want Twitter Blue, so now I'm going to give them my payment details as well as my address and well as my real name. It's like, oh my goodness, all of that stuff is done without you sharing a single thing. And if for some reason your nickname gets destroyed or whatever, or whatever, you can just reinstall another instance with a new nickname. You still use the same key for your funds and stuff, and you're away again. So that was the first thing. But the other thing about Bison Relay is it's censorship resistant. Now, depending on what side of the fence you stand, this is going to be completely scary to a lot of people, because it basically means that you can post whatever you want, you can do all the interactions you want, and it's nobody on the platform is ever going to be able to stop that. The mechanisms in place basically say it's down to the user whether you want to see that person's garbage. If they're spouting hate speech or whatever, it's down to you whether you want to connect with that person. And if you don't, then you just delete them.
And isn't that just like in real life, right? I mean, you cannot counsel people in real life either, right? You can just not interact with them, and then and then the problem is gone. Or you can talk to them and try to change their mind, or point out that they're wrong or whatever. But you're not gonna say, okay, you're not gonna leave your house ever again because I don't like what you're saying. Right?
The idea that there's an algorithm in place that tells your brother that, I'm sorry, you just did something wrong and your account's just got hacked. It's like, well, you're storing all my stuff. My account got hacked because your systems are so bad, and you've now got all my data that they were able to do this. And you're canceling me because of some algorithm that probably suggested that the person that hacked my account wrote something they shouldn't or whatever. And
they don't even give an explanation, right? You get nothing. It's out of control.
And it's getting. I mean, we've all. I mean, the fact that I've seen it, and generally, if you've ever looked through any of my posts, they're generally tame as you like compared to most crypto posts. So the fact that Decode magazine got cancelled was an absolute. I didn't understand that at all, to be fair. But it did prove. We built that up over a couple of years. We had, I think we were getting very, very close to 1,000 followers, which on Twitter these days, without being a premium account, as anyone knows, takes an absolute, takes a lot of effort to get that high, and then for them to say, no, I'm sorry, all that effort that you've just put on there is now gone. And it's like, no, in actual fact, that's my data, not yours. I spent the time putting that stuff together. Why are you able to do that? And that's something that Bison Relay is going to be perfect for.
Yeah, no, on that note, of course, follow Phoenix Green on Twitter. This is his handle that you see right here. It is Decred Society, at Decred Society.
We've got Decred Society, and we've also got CypherpunkTimes. So both worth a follow.
Yeah, I read that and read them. They're really good publications. So and then talking a little bit longer on that issue, because it's really
it's important.
It really boils my blood, to be honest. Actually, I have also been banned. So on Twitter, about a year ago, I had to restart my whole Twitter account, and I had almost 10K followers gone. So I had to start from zero, from scratch. But it's the same thing on YouTube. We are actually go back about 5 years when we started Bitcoin Live, and we rebranded it to Bitcoin Live DB. But after 4 years, in one show, we got 3 strikes, and we were out, and we had to start all over again. So like 4 years of work, like time, effort, money, building it up, gone. Like we never got it back. And my brother's account is still suspended because it was on his YouTube. But it's insane. It's like, we really need something like a Bison Relay, and other projects are also working on it, to sort of. But then I do have a question for you, because I do know that Decred builds really very good, intuitive, easy to use systems, programs, platforms, whatever you want to call it. I really like sort of also that they can make it very understandable. The Decred YouTube, which I also used before when I first got across from it, it's like very understandable. They can easily break things down. But how do you get the people from Twitter, for example, to start using these much better systems? How do you get this sort of movement going to a decentralized place? I mean, how do you view that? Because that's a big issue.
The mindset has to change.
Yeah.
The first thing I would say is this whole idea of mass adoption has to change, because it's when you look at YouTube, when you look at Twitter, what brings you to those platforms? The thing that brings you to those platforms is engagement. So you get 20, 30, 40 likes and you're engaged, and you then go, all right, I'll post something back. Now, from what I've witnessed over the last God knows how many years, a lot of that engagement is completely fake.
Yep.
So they basically do it to keep the enjoyment cells rolling, and that's what has to change. Now, when you go to Bison Relay, the first thing you see, and this is a problem for engagement seekers, the first thing you see is nothing, and rightly so, because it's private. The best platform in the world is going to be private. The first thing you see is nothing. So the first thing people go is, oh, there's nothing there, there's nothing to see. And it's not until you start connecting with people and they start saying, okay, I like this person, so I'm going to let them subscribe to my news feed. I'm going to send them personal chats. I'm going to invite them into the Decred group or the Litecoin group or the DGB group, and then it starts growing. And it really is. It's a completely different mindset. And I think all the time the masses are thinking about engagement, and they're not thinking about censorship, and they're not thinking about privacy, and they're not thinking about how their data and how their behavior is being collected. You're never going to change that. You're never going to get people off of Twitter.
So
that's absolutely.
So you're basically saying it's more like real life.
Well, it's like having an email account that you don't connect anyone to. So if you've got an email account and you and I connect, then we start having these engaging things, and we can have these really private conversations because no one's looking into us, because it's it's a completely private chat. And then we say, oh, look, you and I have got similar interests. Let's start a group. And then we bring some other people in, and then we connect to those people. And that's when it gets interesting. Honestly, we're not VC funded, so we're not we don't owe anyone any money. We have our own funds, like I said to you before. We have the treasury, and our mission is to build things that go against the grain, that basically de-rig the game, and there's no bigger rigging than emails and social media than currently now. So if you want, and honestly, I don't think anyone's ever going to stop using these platforms. They enjoy the buzz too much, but they could say, right, well, actual fact, I want to do this specific thing, and I don't want everybody tracking it. And that's when Bison Relay comes into play. You set up a private group and you talk things. And I could see this being really useful for people building new products that want to spitball ideas with certain individuals without the rest of the world watching. But do I think it's going to be a mass adoption? I absolutely don't think it will go down that route. I think you're going to see cells. You're going to see people that enjoy each other's company, and they want to do it privately. They don't want to have their thoughts censored, so that they're going to communicate with each other. And in many respects, if you remember the old days of forums, that's how it was. I didn't have a whole bunch of, if I'm doing I don't know, some kind of gaming forum that's specific on a niche game, it was those people that I was talking to. I wasn't talking to hundreds of other people. It was very focused, and it was very much of that mindset.
It's basically real engagement, real followers, the real thing. And that's basically what I also sort of meant when, it's more like real life, right? On real life, you're also not going to stand on the corner of the street and yell at everybody in the hope that, people start following you. You basically build up a network. You build a network of friends and family and acquaintances and people that you get to know by, speaking your mind and listening. And that's, of course, way more valuable in the long term than, just shouting stuff out into space. into Twitter space. But there is sort of a dilemma there, right? Because even though I fully agree with you, and I think, for example, when you focus on Bitcoin, I think the focus should be much more on, privacy and on security and on, self-custody. I think that's our role, like the individuals who care about those things. We should focus our main focus should be on that, because that's sort of that's not highlighted in general, right? The highlight is on mass adoption, price movement. That's sexy, that catches views, like technical analysis, and especially the bad technical analysis. That gets the attention. But in the longer term, you do need both, sort of, right? Because eventually you do want to get as many people to use your product, and since the other party is going much faster because they're taking the easy, sexy road, you do have to sort of compete with that in some way, right?
Well, I think there's a tool for a job, and I think that's why people are unlikely to stop using Twitter, aren't they? Really, because that is the tool. If you want to get mass engagement, that's the tool that's probably going to work right now. And we've seen that in the Decred space, where we've got this initiative called the Vanguard Initiative, where users from Twitter can sign up and earn money up to, it's like $100 a month, up to $400 a month, where their whole mission is to engage on Twitter and bring people into the space. And that's the tool for the job. And honestly, I don't think Bison Relay will ever compete with things like that. The things that it's going to compete with are marketplaces, so people can buy things, private communication, and things like that. And I think you stick to the areas that really kind of need addressing, and you use both. Use the right tool for the job. If your mission is marketing, you're not going to do that on Bison Relay. You're going to do that on Twitter. You're going to do that on YouTube.
Yep.
If your mission is to build products, if your mission is to sell goods, then why not? You could use Twitter to market it, and then say, look, here's the store.
True. Yeah, and I think another driver would be, of course, the increased censorship, because once you start censoring, and we're way into censorship mode, it's like an oil spill, right? Everything that's associated or vaguely associated gets censored too, and eventually it becomes so suffocating that everybody sort of jumps out in order to get some air, and then you get to these more private, secure, decentralized social media platforms, even though the relay might not be the best sort of characterized in that sense, but people would sort of migrate towards those places in order to just be themselves and speak freely and get real engagement, because basically these platforms like Twitter are committing suicide, right, by going down this road.
I think by now most people understand that the Twitter game and the social media game on the normal internet. So it really does depend what they want. If they're happy with that, they're happy for their data to be harvested, and run the risks of their data on being breached on data databases and servers, then that really has to be down to them. But if there is an option where you can have more privacy, hopefully we'll start seeing more people kind of filter over to that and start using the things. And we certainly have seen. I mean, did
you see an increase?
Yeah, we have. At the moment, we've got over 100 users on Bison Relay, and it's still very much, like I say, it's still very much not a beta product, but it's still very much in its early development. There's still a lot of work happening. But we've had two people that I know have come along now that have said, "Oh, I want to build this particular service." One was for gift cards, which I believe is almost ready. So they're going to deliver crypto gift cards on Bison Relay. One of the reasons for that is because the transactions were so quick. So for those that don't know, Bison Relay runs on Decred's Lightning Network. So the transaction, but you can have on-chain transactions as well. I should note that. But the transactions are instant, and they cost, like I said before, 1 Satoshi or 1 atom. So they're fast and they're cheap. So you're going to be able to buy a £20 gift card instantly. And the guy that was building this service had already built the service over Tor, and he'd already noticed some of these kind of delay issues, and he believed that might be solved. So it'd be interesting to see how he's getting on. But the other one was a poker game. So one of the developers was, I'm not sure how that development's going now, but he'd basically built a poker game. So it's text-based, like I say, it's no graphics as of this moment, but you could literally have all the dynamics. You go into the poker chat room and you can play poker with whoever's in the chat room. So yeah, which is quite interesting. So there's a lot of people now thinking, actually, there's a lot of benefits here that could work out quite nicely. So we are starting to see that, and as the product matures, as storefronts come and as web pages come, my feeling is you're going to see a lot more of these experiments, and hopefully over the next 2-3 years, we'll start building out the platforms that kind of start challenging some of these norms.
Yeah, and those would be like 100 real users, like not like bots. So that's in itself is also valuable. And
that's the other thing is to be censorship resistant. We also have spam mechanisms as well. So, for instance, in your email at the moment, a cold caller, if you like, can send you as many emails to as many different people as they want. But on Bison Relay, it costs, if you want to send and receive a message, it costs 1 atom. So there is that mechanism in place that actually prevents, 1 atom isn't a lot, but if you try and send, 1 million or 2 million emails, it gets
quite expensive.
Yeah. So that's another mechanism that's in place, which is pretty cool, actually.
So, and another feature is, of course, the decentralized exchange. I mean, that is super cool. Actually, I used it a couple of times, and it works very smoothly. And you got also some really nice connections to other projects. So, can you tell us a little bit about that and how it works?
Well, one of the reasons that DigiByte, or Decred and DigiByte, got close over this last year is because they suffered a similar problem to Decred, whereas no major exchange wants to list us. So we're not on Coinbase, we're not on Kraken, we're not on. I think we're just about on Binance, but no one else wants to list us. And it's the same with a lot of the other platforms. So we've got a really strong relationship at the moment with Pharaoh and DigiByte, Zcash. Those are the main ones. Yeah. Not overly Monero. Monero's getting there. It's getting there. We've got Monero coming to the or at least it's in the works, which should be quite interesting. But the idea that you can't that we were being censored in that respect, we weren't being allowed to go on the major exchanges, even though we're clearly a legitimate project. We've been around for 8 years, and we're building the infrastructure that people want to see, or at least they say they want to see.
So can I sort of jump in there for 1 second, because it's a discussion also very alive within the DigiByte community, and I know there are 2 camps, and one of the camps says we're being actively censored, right? So we're being actively suppressed because you could argue that projects like Decred and DigiByte are way too much focused on decentralization, privacy, freedom, all the good stuff. And that's not your keys. And that would be, in my view, a very valid reasoning that they are being censored and suppressed for spouting those ideas. That's also why I think we are being suppressed at Bitcoin Live, right? So, but there's also another group who just says like, no, decentralization is also it also has a negative side, because if you're decentralized, then it's very hard to organize, to get funds. But as you can imagine, like that doesn't really go for Decred, right? Because you are organized, you do manage the funds. You even had the backing of Katie Woods at some point. She was a pro Decred. A proponent of Decred for a while, and then she mysteriously dropped it. So can you speak to that a little bit before we sort of move back to the?
To be fair, it's a rigged game, and I think that's the only way you can say these things. Is there's certain projects that are not getting any kind of exposure. And I would say DigiByte are very organized as well. Actually, I would say that their community is one of the most friendliest communities I've come across in this space, and it's been an absolute pleasure working with them this past year and trying to get the pairs up and running for DCRDEX. But I
But
mean,
the,
the ultimate goal comes down to is if you want to be decentralized, if you want to be peer-to-peer, why wouldn't you build your own market? You know, why would you? How can you be decentralized and peer-to-peer if you're relying on a centralized product like Binance? How can you be? You can't. So the whole idea is you build a product that has the same values that your coin has. So there's no middlemen. We don't want middlemen. Middlemen can go away. You know, we don't want VCs. We don't want people that are going to sit in the middle of every single trade, clawing off the money. We want to be able to trade as feeless as possible, using those same principles, and that's what Decred or DCRDEX does, soon to be Bison Wallet. It basically says, look, let's build an exchange that has the same values as the original Bitcoin. The original Bitcoin that basically says, hey, we don't want middlemen, we don't want centralization. You know, and this is what's happened. We've got an atomic swap network, which basically says it either happens or it doesn't. So if you and I want to swap, I want to give you Decred, you want to give me Bitcoin, you know, we can do that. You know, without including Binance, without including Coinbase or any of the others, we can just do that.
And it works flawlessly.
And it works flawlessly, and it's feeless. You know, the only I say feeless. That's not the right terminology. There are no trading fees. It's not feeless because it's all on chain. So you obviously pay a transaction fee, but that's it. That's the only thing you actually pay, and that's the way it should be. I should also note that there are other people now following this suit. One in which Decred's just supported a proposal for, and that's Basic Swap, and they do have Monero pairs when you can build your own pairs on that platform. So if you want to swap your DGB with Monero, you can actually say, look, I've got five DGB, or I've got 1,000 DGB, and I want one Monero. You can set that up as an individual, like a marketplace for swaps. And that looks really interesting. And on their platform, they don't even have the bond, the fidelity bond, which is what secures the system on DCRDEX. So, you know, a lot of people are going down this atomic swap route, and it's exciting to see. And I think for most people, it's about, you know, if we're going to be truly decentralized, you have to come away from centralized parties. It's quite logical when you think about it. You know, if you're relying on the people that are going to censor you to do right by you, you're probably relying on the wrong people.
Yeah, that's the same with banking, right? And you know, I'm also sort of guilty of, you know, going for ease sometimes over you know, principles. But when you're sort of banking with a bank, and you know that bank is highly centralized and funding dubious or even sort of outright criminal activity abroad, right? Then you are actually sort of contributing to the problem by sticking with that bank, however easy it is, right? Or however fast it is. And in Europe, that is a little bit harder for you to unbank or to, you know, switch banks, because there's not many banks left. But it is sort of the same idea, right? So by sticking to ease and all those things, you are sort of effectively contributing to the problem.
If you want to be halfway, I think the best way of looking at this is you have these systems, you have these centralized systems that work. They're easy to use. They're great on and off ramps. They work, but you should also want the worst case scenario as well. If that all fails, what is your backup? And at this particular moment, without atomic swap platforms where you have complete custody of your funds, and you can swap permissionlessly between each other, that's not going to happen. So, you know, in many respects, it's like taking a hedge. It's like, okay, that works for now, but if the worst case scenario happens and Binance shuts down, Coinbase shuts down in my region, I still have a way of continuing. And that really is the best way. And a lot of people will say, oh, but there's not much liquidity on these platforms. But you'd be more sad if it didn't exist. You know, if you needed it and it didn't exist, you'd be more sad. And honestly, and this goes for the DigiByte community in particular, the only way you're going to get liquidity on these platforms is if you use them. You know, you put your liquidity on, and you actually put your money where your mouth is.
It's a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I mean, it's sort of complaining about. You often have this discussion, like, for example, with Bitcoin, right? And people are sort of trading Bitcoin, and then, you know, you tell the story about, you know, that it will transform the world. And then they are sort of like, yeah, no, well, I don't see it transforming the world, right? But because they are not actually using it the way it's supposed to be, but they're just trading it as a financial product, right? That they're not even self-custodying it. So basically, they don't even have it. So it's sort of like, the world upside down.
But then that comes down to education. A lot of people don't realize, and this is still the case as we become more mainstream, and we are, and crypto in general is becoming more mainstream. A lot of people don't realize that holding your coins on Coinbase isn't holding, or holding on centralized exchanges or holding them in PayPal, for instance, isn't holding crypto. It's basically just playing their rigged game. And it's not until you say, right, well, I own Decred, so I'm going to hold it into Crediton. And by the way, you hold it into Crediton. Those are your keys. You have to take the responsibility for those keys. So, if your wallet gets hacked, if you give your seed out, that's your responsibility. There's no bank, no Elon Musk going to come and save you from that. And this is a big step that people have to take. And once again, I would say for most of those people, hedge yourself, do a little bit on the centralized, but also start using the decentralized, the self-custody stuff. Especially for new users. I mean, for veterans and things like that, then a lot of them that are holding the bulk of their funds on Coinbase probably should know.
And that's sort of what we touched on earlier with mass adoption, right? On the one hand, you want to get new people into the space, and the only way to get them into the space is through ease of use. And Decred is super easy to use, but still, right? The easiest way to start is on an exchange, like that's sort of to get people involved. But what you really want is to get them off the exchange and start using the product as a text. Yeah,
I tell you, the best way to get into Decred is to join the Vanguard group, because they'll pay you £100 a month, and all you have to do is promote them on Twitter, and then you sign up your Decrediton wallet, because that's the only way you can get funds from the treasury, and you earn that way. You get your first Decred very non-custodial through the platform from the Coinbase itself, rather than Coinbase the platform. The Decred Coinbase, I say. So if you are interested in joining Decred, that'd be the first way I'd go about it. Contact Exodus on Twitter and see if he's interested in having you in the Vanguard group proposal, and give it a try. Become a contractor and see how easy it is to actually earn this stuff. And it's another reason I joined. I really liked Decred is because I could earn crypto. I didn't have to earn fiat. I want to be all in on crypto. Why would I want to earn fiat? I want to earn the project that I'm interested in. At this point, I care less about fiat. I want to earn that. And if you have those same beliefs, then why not come along to Vanguard and earn your first DCR and see how it all works.
No, definitely, right? Yeah, that's an irony right there that we always point that out. I think Johnny Law always makes the point, like, it is a war for the coins, right? It's a fight for the coins, and they're fighting by manipulating the price. So to get people, to exchange those coins for basically what will probably be worthless pieces of paper, dollars, right? So. But it's very difficult to sort of have that psychological switch in your mind, and that you actually recognize that the coins that you're holding is way more worth than the fiat you get in return, because people are so focused on. And of course, it's logical. Like, I often say we already have a crypto. Like in Europe, it's the euro. Basically, it's a digital currency. And soon it will be a CBDC if it isn't already. So basically, we're all using a crypto already, only it's a really bad one. But because everything we do is sort of calculated in it, it makes it very easy to use. And you only see sort of the trade-offs you see as everything becomes more and more expensive, right? That's why you see it's a horrible crypto, and why you should exchange it for better cryptos like Decred and DigiByte and Bitcoin. And that also, maybe that's a nice thing to sort of wrap up because I know you have a show after this. But how do you look at Bitcoin and where it's going through? Because you already sort of mentioned, the whole ideal and revolution was to get rid of all those intermediaries. And there's a lot of criticism, and I think there's valid criticism, that Bitcoin is sort of there's all kinds of intermediaries being returning and sort of getting in the middle of Bitcoin and the peer-to-peer revolution. So how do you see that evolve, and do you think there's hope? Or
unfortunately, I should caveat that I do hold Bitcoin, BTC, but honestly, at this point, it is just a number go up game and see how much I can scalp off the top when it gets to its 100,000 or whatever. If I'm interested in where the future of this stuff goes, I'm not touching Bitcoin with a barge pole. That being said, some of the technologies that they are making are absolutely fantastic. You've only got to look at the Lightning Network, although it's not, it's a kind of a side act to Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network. You've only got to look at how well it's been integrated at consensus level and Decred to know that this stuff actually does work. The same as the Taproot assets, which are being built on the Lightning Network, which are absolutely amazing. Well, they certainly offer a lot of promise. So in terms of the technology that's still being built, whether it gets implemented onto the BTC chain, I don't know, but other people are certainly taking up the mantle and running with it. I don't see Bitcoin going anywhere. I do see it continuing to rise. And if your game is, obviously this isn't financial advice, but if your game is to get but if your game is to get more fiat, then you're probably okay with that. If your game is to get decentralized money, and you want to build products and you want to actually build the products you want to see, like merchants and things like that, you definitely need to start following projects that are trying to build out peer-to-peer technology. And it's unfortunate, a lot of the terminology used in crypto is very convoluted. The word decentralized and non-custodial is used over the top for products that aren't that are fully centralized and fully custodial. So it's this idea of peer-to-peer. The only way you're going to know if it's peer-to-peer is actually if you use it. If I can send you one atom on Bison Relay, we're pretty much secure that we are running the network and we are making those transactions happening between us. So if I've got to wait for somebody's server to spin up in order for me to pass my coin through that server then to get to you, then obviously you there's not much difference, is there, to what's already existing.
So what do you think is the biggest weakness or danger to Bitcoin right now, and what should they do differently in order to salvage the original ID?
I don't know.
Can it still be done?
Yeah, I honestly, one of the biggest problems is every time there is a problem, they have going back to 2017 with their chain size debate, which was a fairly minor debate, really, isn't it? I think they wanted to go from either 1 megabyte to 2 megabytes or 1 megabyte to 4 megabytes, which in the grand scheme of things isn't a big deal. But the fact that they couldn't even decide on that and move forward a few years now, and they still don't seem to be able to decide on issues. So every time someone wants to change something, you get this whole new project occur. I don't know. I don't see them getting some of the stuff like governance, fork resistance, which is what Decred has. So we don't have, everything has to be consensus driven. So everyone votes on a consensus. It either happens or it doesn't. There's never a spin-off of Decred from a contentious hard fork. It's completely fork resistant at this point. So that would be one area where I think it's going to be very hard to backtrack that. I don't see them being able to get things like governance where they can actually make a yes or no decision. This idea that you can have both decisions and they can work side by side. The only thing that I see that benefiting is the coin holders that already own the coins. So now they get two sets of coins, so they can dump the new coins and buy more of the old coin and vice versa if necessary. So I don't know. Like I say, at this particular moment, I think it would be pretty difficult for them to backtrack. But then they've got some clever people working on it, so I'm not sure. Sorry if that's too controversial for your crowd, but
no. Feel free to speak your mind. This is still one of those places where you can just say whatever you want to say.
That's good.
Oh, no, that's I think criticism, especially if it's sort of constructive criticism, that's sort of the lifeblood of any sort of system to self-repair itself and to be resilient. And to tie it back to Decred, I think that's what makes Decred so strong, right? Because you do have this sort of feedback mechanism where you get sort of this where you get the users involved into making a better project and pointing out where it's lacking or what should be done better. If you take out that system through censorship, then eventually it self-destructs, right? Because it cannot adapt anymore to the environment. It becomes blind to the environment.
You've only got to look at the problem that we had in Decred, where we had to kill off we felt that we had to kill off the ASIC miners. In order to do that, we changed from Blake 256 to Blake 3. Now, we had a consensus vote on that. The stakeholders voted on that. The miners upgraded preemptively to the new version, as they have to do in order to keep mining the chain. We had that vote. It passed, and we moved on. Now, if you look at that on Bitcoin Cash, any of the other Bitcoin forks, what's the likelihood that they're going to change from SHA 256, if they have to?
Low.
It's going to be very, very contentious, and they're going to say no, absolutely not. And that's where it really comes down to its own. Sometimes decisions have to be made. Another example is the amazing Neutrino light client, the SPV light client. They had to soft fork that. So now you have like 1% of the nodes running the Neutrino platform, running the sidechain headers, or the headers that are needed for the light clients. Whereas a hard fork upgrade in Decred, which was also consensus voted on, we now have that as part of the blockchain. The block header now includes all of the data needed, so that we can run. So every single fully validated node can run the light client, and vice versa. And these are things. These are simple things that it doesn't make any sense for you not to have light clients, but the fact that you either can or you can't, it reduces the security of the light client as well, which is not a great scenario.
Yeah, and you of course always have trade-offs, right? But it's also right. It's kind of useless if you can make an efficiency upgrade. Why you wouldn't do it if you can, right? So I totally get it. And sort of talking about that, like moving forward with Decred, what would you like to see improve in your view? Is there something that is still lacking, or if you had to say, like, if you were the governance, what would you upgrade? Or is it perfect?
No, nothing's perfect. No, sometimes I come across as a bit it is, but it's nothing's perfect. There's still lots of things that need to do. And the one thing that goes for Decred, and it also goes for pretty much every project in the space, is this idea of merchants. We need to build merchant systems. At the moment, although like the DGB Commerce guy, absolutely loving that platform that you showed on one of your last shows. It's very important. It's very important that people are experimenting with merchant adoption, and we're building these sorts of things. That, in my opinion, that is the final step. Once you've got peer-to-peer exchange, once you've got peer-to-peer internet, once you've got peer-to-peer coin, the final step is to get people to use it in a peer-to-peer way, and that is merchant. That's merchant stuff. Building out payment systems so that merchants can feel comfortable that everything's going through. And we're now 15 years into the journey of Bitcoin and 8 years into the journey of Decred, and we're still at that stage where the base layers are still being finalized and moving forward. But if we're going to bring on more people, it will probably be in the merchants domain now. There are a lot of benefits from bringing merchants on, especially in Bison Relay, because then they start running more nodes. You start to fortify your system, because the merchants want to secure their own funds that they're bringing in, so they run the node for the platform.
And then also the platform becomes more attractive to other people because there's something to get there, and then it's a self-reinforcing cycle that starts off. And on top of that, right, eventually we do want to use the coins that we have, right? That's the whole point. It's kind of funny because it always reminds me of what Larry Fink said when he suddenly turned and said, crypto and Bitcoin is fantastic. Before it was like, he was on the Warren Buffett side, like red poison. But then he made this really interesting distinction, like, it is not good as a monetary vehicle or as a peer-to-peer transaction vehicle. It's only good, basically that's what he's implying, it's only good as a speculative asset, right? So, what's the point of that, right? That's actually the worst side of
Yeah.
it's like they're promoting the absolutely worst side, because then even if it's true that would be the best thing about it, what is it based on? If the worth is in that it's a peer-to-peer alternative monetary system, right? That's the whole point. So
Yeah,
self-contradictory.
absolutely. There are a lot of contradictions in the space, and I think the minute it can be used efficiently, securely, with speed, and with low cost as a merchant tool, that's when it will start being used. And we're getting there, but I still think we're probably a good 5 years off of having a platform that merchants want to use.
And I think also, because that's also something you said, and that's maybe the best place to end, because I know you have to go. I really like that you in Decred, the Decred community reaches the hands to other communities like the DigiByte community, and the people who have a sort of similar outlook on things, who are freedom oriented. And I think that sort of anti-tribalism, that you sort of reach each other the hand, and that you not say like our project is the best and you're etc., but that you're actually working together to improve everybody's projects, is the way to go, right? This is actually the only way to go. And tribalism is actually pretty silly. Competitiveness is fine, but tribalism is just stupid. So congratulations on the Decred community out there. Personally, I love you, and I actually also hold some Decred. My girlfriend's also a big Decred fan, by the way. I had to say that. Is there anything you want to add? Where can people sign up? The Decred Vanguard, of course, but
Decred Vanguard will be through Exodus on YouTube. We're mainly obviously Bison Relay, but Matrix is the main onboarding place for Decred, as is Telegram, I believe. Or you can just at Decred Society is where I'm at if you wanna kind of talk more about this stuff. But no, it's been absolutely great being on your show, and I'm glad this is happening. And thank you for reaching out for me. It's been a really nice conversation, a nice exchange of ideas, and this is the way we take it forward, isn't it? Is to think about what's going to make it to the next level. How can we start engaging this and building these communities, and of which most of them are absolutely amazing. So I'll let you do the sign off. But thank you, everyone. I hope hope what we've talked about here has been beneficial.
Yeah, and let's do it again in the future. And in the meantime, just keep building, keep working that excellent website. I'll keep linking and retweeting. And I wish you all the best. Take care.
Yes, take care.